Part 2 of the Heroes Global Championship kicks off today. We have already had so many incredible matches, and we are just getting started. With the EU out of the way, we're switching over to North America. I'm Gillyweed here with my co-commentator Dreadnought. Dread, it is great to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, I'm just ready to get things started. We've had a small break for the North American and the rest of HGC. We had the Western and the Eastern clash, but now it's time to figure it out again, you know, get back to the North American scene.
And it's great that you mentioned that break. I'm excited to see what our NA teams have done with that. Let's remember that the standings from Part 1 are going to carry over, so let's take a look at those and see where things fell by the end of Part 1. When you look at this, I see a distinct three-part split for the standings of NA. We've got the three teams at the top that represented the region at the Western Clash, all taking a series off of each other. Then the middle two, B-Step and Superstars, this could have ended up easily the other way. The series between those two was a nail-biter. And then finally, the last three teams, like the top three, all again taking a match off of each other. So this sort of 3-2-3 split that we're seeing in NA, you know, something about that number, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it feels right, Dread.
It feels very, very right. You know, it's just the conspiracy theory Illuminati confirmed here through the North American Heroes Global Championship. But yeah, it's awesome to see how things have laid out. But it's, you know, we get to see, are they going to be able to mix it up? Are teams really going to be able to recover some of those that struggled in the North American scene for some time? Now that they've had a break to recoup, we have a new meta coming out. There's a lot of, you know, new tales to be set here.
Yeah, a big one is Team Naventic. And as we look at today's schedule, we get to talk a little bit more about them because they'll be playing. But we kicked things off in Europe. And man, Fnatic took out Team Expert, which was an expected result. But if you missed that match, it was everything you want from Team Expert. Cho'Gall was there. Probius put his little probe head out. There was even a Gazlo. And then we just saw Tricked Esport really bring it to Team Liquid, and in the end, Liquid closed out that series. We'll be ending the day today, seeing if Team Naventic can start that rise out of the bottom two teams in the standing, going up against B-Step. That's always a historic match. So we're kicking things off with, I really could not think of a better match to start things off than Gale Force Esports versus Team 8, Dread.
Yeah, and you know, we saw at the Western Clash that Team 8 was able to outperform every other North American team at that tournament. And it was suddenly, you know, we had high hopes for them because they were slowly just climbing within the ranks in the North American scene, but they finally put their staple on where they think that they belong, and now it's time to prove it. They were going up a very formidable opponent in GFE, and now it's, you know, was that a fluke is really what I feel like this series is going to show.
You know, I talked to Justin a little bit, and he mentioned that they kind of had the bad luck draw of matches. They are going up against both Gale Force Esports and Tempo Storm this weekend, so they couldn't play their normal scrim partners, which are those two teams, whereas those two were able to scrim each other. So he felt like, you know, that might be a little bit of an advantage in Gale Force Esports' favor for this match, but at the same time, they're the home team, so they got to play on their central server. They're very excited about that.
Yeah, and, you know, that's a really interesting point that you bring up. You know, how the scrimming plays out depending on who you end up facing. That, yeah. Especially with the longer break that existed for them, that technically that would hurt them debatably more than every other team. But I think that's also showing if they truly think they are, you know, if they belong at the top of North America, they have to overcome that.
Exactly. And they have been scrimming other teams too. They said scrims are going really well for them. But I also got to talk to Equinox over on the other side of Gale Force Esports. And at Western Clash, we were critical of their Warrior play. They had decided to have Equinox play Warrior primarily throughout the Western Clash, and unfortunately they fell out right away. But they did go up against the European teams, and none of our NA teams were able to take them out.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah,
you know,
it was a rough time for us. We were a little sad, but at the same time, now they're going to have Equinox fully on the Warrior role. So what do you make of this?
I like the change. I think it's a smart step for Gale Force Esports. That being said, I don't know if it's going to pay off right now. I don't think that maybe that instantly means this is going to be a more successful team, but in the long run, that makes far more sense. I often criticize the 4 flex and a support mentality that it seems like they tried to take on that branding.
Yeah.
And it never really holds up at international play, and they instantly backed out of it, and it didn't look pretty there. But I do think that it will be a nice stepping stone, really, for them to get the ball rolling.
Well, we are ready to get the ball rolling for this series. Here it is, Team 8 versus Gale Force Esports.
So after Phase 1, Part 1 of HGC, I think Team 8 is the biggest shocker. I think everyone kind of expected them to be like that 7th, 8th spot since they qualified last. So huge props to them.
What I thought of Gale Force in Phase 1, Part 1 of HGC like really comes down to them on an individual level. I think in last year, the season of 2016, some of the players weren't as strong as they are now, and I think that is a big reason as to why they're doing so well now. I think they've improved and come a long way as a team.
Now, another important thing we haven't talked about with this matchup yet is the mid-season brawl. All of the teams are going to be playing to try to get to the top of the standings for that, and it works qualification a little bit differently than what we had for the Western Clash. First of all, only the top 2 teams in each region get to represent, so there's not going to be possibly, again, where Tempo, Teammate, and Gale Force get to go. Another thing is the top team in the standings by the end of Part 2 is guaranteed qualification, but everyone else has to fight through the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, even this early on to Part 2 of Phase 1. And I think we saw, even looking at Part 1, a lot of teams early on, we thought, you know, you have a couple of games to flex. It wasn't looking that good, but most of the teams that started to struggle early struggled all the way through, and very few were able to change that because depending on what their early matchups were, showing how much more important this first series between Teammate and Gale Force is going to be. That really could change the difference from going to the midseason brawl and not.
And it all starts with the drafting. We are ready to take a look at the Battleground pool for HGC and see where Game 1 will take place. All HGC. We're going to have best of 5 series. If you're just joining us, welcome. You missed out a lot of awesome games in Part 1, but we are so happy to have you with us. Bans. Gale Force Esports banned Curse Hollow. That has been a favorite in the past for Teammate. Teammate is going to ban... What is that? Is that Warhead?
Yeah, it's going to be Warhead there.
I did not recognize that picture. So Warhead ban, and Team 8 picked Battlefield of Eternity. So this is a favorite of Teammates, but it's also a really good battleground in the past for Gale Force Esports too.
Yeah, BOE is, you know, it's always fun to see which team comes out on top. I think it's a really nice way to be able to start the series. It's kind of, I think a lot of times indicative of the better team is the one who can win on BOE because it takes a lot of synergy within your team, and the drafting is also going to be equally crucial. It just forces you to be on your game, and when you aren't, it usually leads to a 9-minute game, right? It's very, very quickly.
It is very not forgiving if you start to get behind on Battlefield of Eternity. Ragnaros in the past has been a favorite for a lot of teams on Battlefield of Eternity because he does allow you to be more forgiving. And we saw a lot of nerfs come into Ragnaros on the patch that we'll be playing on, which is not the Cassia patch, it's the one right before. And especially for Team 8, how much does that hurt them?
I feel like with Teammate, Prismaticism specifically, with how much focus he put on the Ragnaros, it's going to hurt. It is very much going to hurt their team, but they had to have known that for some time, right? They've seen the nerfs come out. Prismaticism's got to be working out the hero pool on to something else. I do think we will see Ragnaros on this map still because of how good he is defensively when it comes to the map objective itself, but in general, we will see a significant drop in value of that hero is going to be my prediction onto the meta.
Well, here we go. Just to give some insight, Team 8 is 4-1 on Battlefield of Eternity. Gale Force Esports is 5-1. Gale Force has chosen to ban Malfurion. Let's see what Team 8 wants to take out. Looks like Tassadar, you know, Task Tracer is pretty scary on Battlefield.
It's absolutely terrifying and has kind of been still the staple. Instantly locked in, though, is going to be the Zeratul there for Gale Force Esports. Looking for the pickoffs here and there. Interesting choice. Doesn't commit too much to the race, but talking about race, we're speeding through this draft. Li Ming and Dahaka the choice for Teammate, even though it's not necessarily what you consider a global map.
Right. Yeah, I think the best thing for Teammate is if they're trying to make sure that they can get ahead in the soaking, the fact that he can instant rotate instead of going up and then having to have the time of walking back.
Yeah.
That gives them a little bit more favor. And especially Gale Force Esports, we've known how much Michael Udall loves to play Falstad. If they're anticipating that Gale Force wants to pick up Falstad, if it's not picked up here, it might even prompt a ban from Teammate trying to take that down.
Yeah, and I think the Dahaka pickup here is exactly what you're talking about. You know, it's going to show that they're going to put heavy emphasis onto that side soak and then looking for a burrow to get the initiation around the map objective itself. But now hesitation here for Gale Force in where they want to move. My first thought is with Malfurion off the table, I want to see a Lucio come out from them, be a higher priority. I still think he's quite a standout support in that department, right alongside Malfurion. They are just kind of at that tier above, but they opt out of it. The Arthas and the Falstad now to match the global.
So there is Falstad. I was not expecting Arthas. I was expecting ETC still from GFE, but remember, they have been changing up significantly what they're doing with their warrior player. Now having Equinox, it's all about his comfort, especially as he adjusts to this new role.
Yeah, I love the Arthas. I think some of the patch, since we last saw North American HGC, he is obviously a different beast. And to see that Zeratul that high up and then neglecting it for Team 8 as well, it shows that at least out of these two teams, Macro has really kind of consumed the North American thought process for a while because this is not a macro-oriented map. Falstad we've seen in the past a great success. He complements the race pretty well, and then he also does well when it comes to the side soak. Dahaka is more just side soak, side soak, side soak.
Yeah.
So it shows that we are now changing our mentality very much to that global macro game. And I find that really interesting, actually. It hasn't consumed, it seems, the region that heavily for, I mean, I'm going to say near a year.
Yeah. What an interesting change-up. We'll see how the rest of the drafts complement that if they now focus on making sure that they still have good team fight composition, since there are quite a lot of skirmishes around on Battlefield of Eternity. Teammate is going to ban Rhaegar, so punishing a little bit this idea of picking Malfurion and then not getting...
I just figured I'd put that one where it belongs. I'm the Diablo in this situation, let's be honest here. All right, so looking at the draft, the ETC ban out. He's seen some nerfs and fallen out in favor, but again, he complements this map very well. The setup onto the Immortal Stun itself. So we have a bit of what's expected. Another support remove, so I'm going to say there's no way, but granted, it's a completely different meta. You know, everything is mixing up here, but I would say that there's no way support's not picked up. After 2 being removed, it makes Teammate for a big power play.
I wonder if Teammate's going to get Karzim here.
It could be. There's Lucio.
They're going to take Lucio away, too. So getting Lucio for Buds, what's the next choice in the past? They've picked some different choices here, but getting Varian for Justing. Now, this is something that you and I were talking about. Justing played a ton of Varian, but we do know that he has a huge hero pool. He was even playing Anu, Barak, and Arthas a little bit in NA HGC before they had their buffs. So we know he's capable of playing other heroes, but it looks like still being okay with the changes that have come into Varian.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see that priority, because he has fallen, obviously, a lot with some of the nerfs that have happened to him, but it's still going to be played in the main map that we originally kind of saw him come to fruition was on BOE, because you dance around for so long, so many taunt opportunities, and I expect Teammate to be able to capitalize. They have great follow-up when looking at the Dahaka to be able to match it. Li Ming is amazing to be able to get the burst afterwards, so as long as they, that last pick is going to be something where I would say naturally like a Greymane is my first thought.
Something you can help with race,
yeah,
too.
It's a really good burst, but Gale Force doesn't necessarily they have the opportunity to go into a Greymane here. It's not going to be a free option for their teammate. Even though you have a melee like Zeratul, Greymane very much can still be in a double melee. Arthas will enable him so much with Executioner. There's a Morales and the Lunara, something that we saw very much so at the Eastern Clash.
As well with Gale Force Esports, they have played...
oh, baby.
He's back. It's time for NA Medivh. I'm telling you, it's going to be happening a lot more, too. I get the feeling.
Yeah, I agree. A bit in solo queue, actually, recently, I've matched into a couple professional players, and every single one of them seems to be picking it up, trying to get the practice in, and I think it will consume. It makes a lot of sense with the Varian. We talked so heavily about one portal. Suddenly, an entire area is a very lethal zone for a team that's going to pick it up. I am a bit concerned about the racing on this side of Teammate. They seem very team fight and macro-oriented with their play, not so much about taking the race itself. And if they fail to be successful there, I really do feel like Gale Force might be able to pull ahead here.
Yeah, this has been sort of a common trend that we've seen from Teammate in their drafting, is a lot of focus on shielders, even being willing to give up quite a bit on damage and focus on just making sure that they have all the tools needed to be able to win out through a team fight should things go wrong. And then again, time and time again, having Medivh, Varian, or Diablo to be able to get an engage in an instant. And Medivh does allow the team to sort of skirt around whatever front line is there, and Arthas, Zeratul too, to be able to get on Morales.
And yeah, I was going to say Morales, Akaves here has to play absolutely on point, just because he's going to be under so much threat through the mobility that Lucio is going to provide for the team, the portal into the Varian taunt. Post 10, he really can't just move out to be able to heal anybody on his team, and I think that puts a lot of pressure onto the Zeratul to make huge plays with the Void, and then the rest of the squad to be able to back it up when that happens, because I feel pretty comfortable saying most Voids in this game are going to be saving Morales more than it is in an offensive play on the side of GFE.
Yeah, there isn't really too much to follow up anyway with Void, unless maybe Arthas were to take Syndragosa instead and then slow down from that.
But even then, Arthas is kind of a
just
pseudo follow-up,
anyway,
right?
He just sits there with his Frozen Tempest.
He gets one tick of his passive, and suddenly everybody not only has a damage reduction, they're limited when it comes to their mobility. So yeah, it's not maybe as wombo-y as you are traditionally experiencing with Zeratul, but it is still a perfect hero to be able to get that follow-up.
Lunara even too can help a little bit with that. Likely we'll see Leaping Strike, but maybe Thornwood Vine if she just wants to keep poking too. That way she can stay back. I don't know. Which heroic do you think she's going to take?
I would like to see Leaping Strike. I think it's just in general the safer choice
Okay.
typically, but I do think that Thornwood Vine in this situation with Zeratul having so much kill potential is an
Right.
option.
All right, guys, we are ready for game number 1 between Gale Force Esports and Teammate. We're heading into Battlefield of Eternity. In the blue, the members of Team 8. Buds will be playing Lucio, Justing once again on his Varian. Yoda playing Li Ming, averaging 4.5 kills per game on that hero. Glaurung on his Medivh. And to compensate, it'll be Prismaticism playing Dahaka.
And in the red here is Gale Force Esports, Akaface on that Morales. Equinox filling out the main warrior onto the Arthas. Mike Udall on his classic Falstad. Crow in there is going to be playing the Lunara, and Fan, as always, on that melee assassin, the Zeratul. A lot of pressure is going to be put on Fan and Akaface this game. I think they are, you know, the less standard heroes when it comes to this, and then also considering teammates' composition and the aggression that they are going to have, their play needs to be near flawless.
Because there's a Falstad, does it lessen some of the pressure of Fan to be moving around and trying to split soak, which is something that Team 8 often does when they draft Zeratul on Battlefield of Eternity, is Glaurung is the one who constantly is out in lane trying to get the soak and run back?
Yeah, you can move in that direction, and yes, obviously, anytime you get the Gust, we'll be able to help a little bit more. The synergy between the heroics obviously needs to be, you know, very synergistic across the board, not popping both at the same time. But even then, it's a safety cushion, but you always, with Medivh Portal and Variant Taunt, the cooldowns are significantly shorter than those. So one power play comes out, a Gust gets the peel, and then, well, conveniently enough, 20 seconds later, they're back for another one. Where's your Gust then, right? It does relieve the pressure, but is it enough, I think, is more what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, they'll have to be efficient with that usage, making every single heroic ability count. Right now, a 2-3 split in the lanes from Team 8. Medivh trying to help out Prismaticism up in the top lane, just do a lot of damage, and has Michael Udall completely pushed back into his base. So getting a lot of early pressure, and more importantly, a little bit of an early experience advantage if they can continue to take these down. And look, Dahaka can just sit for a really long time. Now Michael Udall's going after him. Can't quite get the kill, though, with the portal.
Yeah, and he's just barely going to make it out for Fan to be able to clean that up. Even fearfully drops the burrow to be able to hide himself. Map objective, though, is going to be up. And with Prismat Hafting pulling back, I would say it's an advantage, but he should have the ability to use that global, join right back in as long as the team starts this initiation around a shrub. Scouted out there, Glaurung is going to be able to reveal the team as they start in the objective. Portal ends up dropping here, but nothing going to happen yet. Fan and friends are pretty low in the HP department, and Glaurung is just being ignored, but maybe for not long. Justing doesn't get the back half of the portal, though.
Oh, and the Howling Blast hits him, too. There is a shield, though, from Glaurung to protect him, so no kill just yet for Gale Force. Drag comes in, stun goes down. Even before it drops, Lunara taking out first blood for Team 8.
And already the aggressive team composition that Team 8 has managed to draft is showing the pressure that they're applying to Gale Force Esports, and that wasn't even, you know, onto the medic that I was so concerned about. Good barrel roll in for Mike Udall, gonna force Glaurung to back out here. Gale Force has gotten an advantage when it comes to the Immortal itself, but I don't think it really matters. Team 8 is way more worried about that post-10. As long as this kind of delays a little bit longer and Gale Force doesn't gain an early advantage on the structures through the Immortal, it's gonna be a fine game for them.
Yeah, and Varian's going to only get tankier. Now Team 8 can move back if they want. We'll see if they want to try to defend. This is a difficult position to defend in. But Glaurung revealing the area, starting to move in. They're going to try to defend this and get some more kills, try to snowball this early lead they've picked up.
Yeah, and you already see everybody sets their focus onto the Morales whenever they can. I know that is the nicest of memes that we have here in Heroes of the Storm is Focus Morales, but especially with the comp that we see there, the portal into Justing. I don't think we actually came up with a brilliant name for that combo, but one day I'm sure there will be a hashtag HGC that lets us know what they think about that beautiful Medivh and Medivh and Varian combination.
Might even be today. I would like to call it the surprise birthday party.
It's just, you drop the portal, surprise!
Hello!
We're ready to battle. Equinox under a lot of pressure, no mana.
Buds. What a beautiful sound wave, too. Equinox, the next to get taken out, and this gives Team 8 a little bit of breathing room to rotate back and start putting damage onto Beleth, the Red Immortal.
And once again, just it's all about the focus around the 10 here. Gale Force Esports is going to be able to pick up the rest of this Immortal. Team 8 backs out to just rid of the shielding as much as they can. But Gale Force has to capitalize on this window because they are not going to be as successful as they have been in this early game. That being said, down 2-0, I don't know if I would say it's been successful, but they're going to feel a lot more pressure post-10. So whenever they get a shielding this big and having a relatively effective sieging composition with the Falstad and the Lunara, it's really important that they look for probably an entire fort minimum at this point in time in the game.
And they're doing a good job of continuing to keep the soak in the bottom. That there's Zeratul there too, but Gale Force have to remember that with Dahaka being the person in the bottom, he can brush stock in and leave Gale Force a man down in the fight. So have to be careful how they're going to take this fight and this siege. The shields have been brought down, putting the Immortal into melee range. There's a portal in the back, just trying to scare some of the members of Gale Force. They're going to have double protection with shield wall coming in for Justing too.
Burrow is going to come in here for Prismaticism. Can he get onto Aka face? He's trying to be able to dodge the drag. Equinox body blocking perfectly and getting that peel. Very well done there. Fan and the rest of GFE has moved up here. They're going to start the skirmish. Beautiful shielding coming out from Justing, and everybody is going to be just fine here for both teams. The fort did not fall, though, so maybe not as much as GFE was going to be aiming for, and teammates still ahead in the experience.
I am a little scared for Gale Force Esports to be able to get kills, but things should change again if Fan can land the right VPs or Mike Udall can get the right Gus, but there's so much pressure on them. Just even from these fights, you can see the double protection from Medivh's Force of Will, and then now that Shield Wall was picked up for Varian, he doesn't have to worry about that. Varian can be as ham as he wants, especially with the full parry build too. He even has the increased duration on that. Medivh can focus those Force of Wills on anybody else in the team, and with Lucio's healing ramping up into the late game, I'm a bit fearful for Gale Force.
Yeah, it is a very risky spot in draft overall for Gale Force Esports. Beautiful initiation and follow-up there for the Vorpal. They're going to dive deeper. Glorung is trying to be able to retreat. Fan gets the kill. Equinox feeling the beam there from Akafe. Should be able to make it out. And for the first time, Gale Force Esports showing signs of life and getting a pick.
Understand that they had to get a pick, and who better to get it on than somebody who was trying to stack the Master's Touch. It was early on in the stacks, but still it's going to hurt a little bit to lose those. For Medivh, with that Gale Force Esports taking out the top, everyone else from Teammate is in the bottom too, so that'll net them a fort, and Gale Force Esports are back in the game.
And I think we've already gotten to experience a little bit of what we were touching on the draft is between the Dahaka and then the Varian Portal, there's very few places for Akaface to move to feel comfortable. And now we are rounding out that 10, which is where the taunt probably is going to come into play. You know, it has seen some changes, but I still think it's going to be the staple for the next while. Eventually we might see some Colossus Smash coming in, but for now that's what we can expect here in North America.
My friend calls that build www.taunt.com because you have the 3 W's.
That's brilliant.
Shout out to Stark, so good.
The www.taunt.com. Oh man, I love it. Oh, that is a beautiful name there. But back to the game. It's closing out on the 10. As you referenced before, Zeratul looking to get that side soak, matching Prismaticism, even applying a lot of pressure. But Glorung and friends are going to join. Fan 1 teleport is not enough because that portal, if as long as the reveal goes.
Sounds there too. Void Prison has to be used.
Still gonna
I don't think he's going to get out of here anyway, yeah.
He's still going to die. Portal's going to be up in about 3 seconds here. 1 teleport out. Portal is going to drop. No.
This is buying so much time, though, for the Immortals. Look at the Immortal of Team 8. Fan is doing everything to buy time. Finally, Team 8 recognize it. But a lot of the Immortal health has been taken away by Gale Force.
And he gets out.
He did.
I maybe not giving enough credit to Fan there. Because typically, I guess post-13, there's no way that lasts. Wait a minute, though. Beautiful cleanse coming out from Akka. That's going to reveal the taunt. So there it goes. 10 more seconds before that combo is up once more. Post 13, though, that is just, unreasonable to be able to escape there from the Medivh. And again, it's going to enable that kill potential and the dive of teammate that much more. But a little bit of an advantage when it comes to that Immortal health.
Dahaka also has isolation this time, so giving up the self-sustain of adaptation. But I love anytime we see a Dahaka take isolation versus Zeratul. There's a taunt, drag to Equinox in dire straits. Army of Dead, so helping him out.
But he survives, and that's the most important part. As long as they don't die to the initial burst, Gus comes out buying even that much more time. The poke is there. Howling Blast is going to land onto only Prismaticism. And a lot of heroics traded here between the two teams. Team 8 will pull ahead based on Varian's, taunt is very, very short, and the fact that Sound Barrier is still up here, and that means that teammate now is going to posture up, look towards getting damage onto this Immortal.
Thankfully, too, where the fight took place, teammate could go back. Oh, the damage of Crowin rips through the health bars of Yoda. Sound barrier comes out, buys some time and some healing for Team 8. Once again, they have to retreat back to the safety of their Immortal.
And that Howling Blast there almost postured up for one more kill. There goes the drag on to Equinox. He is going to be fine for now. Akaface, you know, I question his ability to stay alive, but for now he has done a phenomenal job keeping his team up and keeping them alive. Crowin is a bit low when it comes to HP and more importantly the mana there. So the damage output of GFE is going to be relatively low, and both teams seem like they're going to go back to that macro game we were referring to before. That I'm beginning, I want to see more drafts. I really do feel like that heavy trend is something that we will see out of these North American teams.
Leyline Seal will be back in a few seconds, but with Sound Barrier down, Team 8 are going to play the passive game. Meanwhile, all heroics up for Gale Force Esports. They could choose to get a little more aggressive here in the middle, especially because they're so close to getting the halfway point where the Immortals will switch positions. If they can just get a couple more pokes, they have Thornwood Vine 2 to even help with that. There it is. Crowin will start the second phase of this Immortal.
Yeah, and I'm always critical about Thornwood Vine, but again, with the Zeratul and having that kill potential, that lockdown, that makes this heroic an option versus just having to go with the Leaping Strike to be able to ensure that somebody is going to die somewhere. And I like it. You know, anytime you can get poke, it's going to match Li Ming, which is rare to be able to say on Battlefield of Eternity. She is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to her harassment over the Immortals.
Yeah, even without Nature's Culling too, so she can still get Splintered Spear to throw a lot of damage down. By the way, Lunara is also pretty effective versus Medivh too, because that ticking damage of hers, its Force of Will isn't as effective versus that. Prismaticism has used his essence. He's going to heal back up, and now the positioning of Gale Force Esports kind of scary. Michael Udall barrel rolls over the wall. Gust to save Crowin. Nicely done, Gale Force.
Yeah, very smart Gust is going to be used there, but now the question is how much damage do they get out? Zeratul has started to get that damage out onto the Immortal, but it looks like Gale Force might end up forfeiting it here, as except for Prismatic getting cut out once more. Equinox is going to get the body block, but can Team 8, it's more about the Immortal race right now. They have given up on their friend here in the bottom lane, but it did net them an Immortal. Void is laid down.
Thornwood Vine 2 starting to slow down the members of Team 8 from being able to escape. Yoda's blasted through, teleports into Sound Barrier, but that means that heroic ability once again is down with the portal. Team 8 escapes, and they did get the Immortal this time.
Yeah, Sound Barrier use there, though, is about worst case scenario. They very much wanted that to be able to siege up here in the top lane with this Immortal to be able to gain some value out of it. And now with their HP being so low, down those heroics is a very free rotation to get that damage out here. Ridding of the shield and probably about half of the HP. There goes the portal. Good peel there from Equinox. He's done a very good job on the Arthas, you know, because we talked about, you know, what do we expect to see from Equinox moving on to the Warrior, and so far his Howling Blasts have really set up and also denied a lot of plays for both sides here.
Shoutouts to Akaface too, with a lot of good displacement grenades to get better positioning for the team, even to make sure that they can get the kill on bottom Prismaticism as well. Interesting build to see from Li Ming, but more so focused again to the Battleground specifically, that we're going to have Charged Blast. Still Calamity. I feel like that's a must-have when you're up against Zeratul. But no Illusionist to pair with that. Instead, Cannoneer.
Yeah, I at this point I call it just the Yoda build, because he generally he has some of the most innovative builds in the North American scene, especially on comforts like the Li Ming. So
Falstad too.
Yeah, he just likes to, you know, step out of the box a little bit and try to get the innovation. And with the success of Team 8, you know, you can't really judge.
We'll have to see. We'll see how it works out in this game.
Yeah.
But reserve judgment at least until then.
Be like, you know, I can't be critical until you lose, and then I'll just be like, that was the worst idea I've ever seen in my life, you know?
It was solely the build and nothing else that made the difference.
No misplay whatsoever. I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to have to take it down to the talent choices here, boys.
Now, I do love seeing that innovation, though, from Yoda. In general, it reminds me a lot of the Chinese teams, and I always enjoy watching them, too, because they are more willing to switch up in a lot of their talent builds. This should make things quite more fun for Team 8 2, having Mortal Strike now at 13 per variant and to try to bring down some of the healing output that so far Akaface has been doing a great job with.
And one thing we do have to note as well is that we are closing in on the 16 power spike of Lucio into that Lunara. We talked about how the Lucio, the Medivh will struggle into the Splintered Spear and the Thornwood Vine, but Lucio, on the other hand, will thrive post 16. To be able to heal AoE around everybody, we'll be able to negate a lot of the poison damage that she's going to be outputting. Portal dropped. Udall does have the barrel roll. He's got a gust too. He might need to fly out though because Justin is still not dismounted. Will he get it?
He's on the chase. He dives
He gets it.
He taunts too, but everyone else is heading straight up to the fight. Mike Udall this time will be able to fly away out of the clutches of Justin.
But how far out will he make it? Buds looks like he's going to be in pursuit. At least Galarong will. Gets the reveal, but it looks like he is going to be fine. So very clutch save there for Udall.
But again, it bought time.
Baited and outsmarted.
Ooh!
Twice in a row here, boys.
Teammate are not very happy about that. They're going to try to get started on the Immortal race, but Gale Force Esports with a significant advantage this time have all the time they need to try to catch up in experience. They cannot get too far behind or they're going to all of a sudden be running into a level 16 teammate.
And Gale Force is playing this defensive position for now, but the window on that 16 is going to be closing in. And I think half a level is enough that I don't know if GFE has the tools to be able to delay past that point. So I feel like rather than being that defensive team, maybe poking on the bottom, this bottom four is only going to be, you know, a little bit of experience there.
Helps somewhat.
But it's enough that I feel like I would rather see them be extremely offensive right now than the defensive. They could make it work. They do have the Void. They still have Gust. They have a lot of tools to buy a couple of seconds here and there. But it's a risk, you know, I'd rather see the team take what they know they can get rather than what they think they can.
They're spread out really far apart, and the minute teammate realizes this, the minute they are close enough to 16, they're going to get aggressive. You can already see them starting to move toward the Immortal. They want to take a full advantage of that window of time, but the soaking is so good for Gale Force. The top lane was so far pushed toward Gale Force that they're going to be caught up to 16 really quickly. I think Gale Force has sustained through. The Immortal health are about even now, but they should be able to fight this.
Mission complete, really. You know, GFE, they took a risk and they are going to make it pay off here. Udall once again is pressuring out on the top lane. The portal's going to be dropped. I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Then what happens? The team moves up. They get baited this time, though. Will they get the kill? No, the Void buys the time for the Arthas. The lane line is going to drop a 4-man Void. Gilly, it's not looking good.
And Boomerang to follow up. That's going to be Sound Barrier. Arthas deleted from the fight. Gale Force Esports starts to pull back now.
Yeah, and they're going to move up here for Team 8. I just cannot believe that fight went that poorly, that fast. It shows you, you know, without that burst healing, with the Arthas dropping the Void, he didn't have enough time to get those ghouls off, costing him his life. And now Team 8, rather than trying to force the issue onto the objective, at least Prismaticism for now on the Dahaka is going to back out. Maybe a burrow onto Akka if they sniff his positioning near that shrub out.
Yeah, they have good poke, though, with Li Ming once she gets into position. So now she's going to start that 2 buds.
Oh,
my!
That is not what you want there. Good taunt, and the kill actually happens on the back line.
Woo!
They end up getting the pick off there onto Lucio. Fan making plays. Portal out is going to be Yoda, and now Gale Force is the team that finds themselves the advantage.
Fan's playing out of his mind. Now the poke from the other side, too. You can see how fast Crowin and Michael Udall can take out an Immortal once they get started. This will be an Immortal in favor.
Oh.
Just barely in Gale Force Esports.
I'm amazed Teammate didn't go, okay, and just turn onto that Arthas. They actually get the flight and the gust justing. Drops the W's. Had the third. And he's going to be out with that portal. This is going to be a small shield here onto the Immortal. But again, when looking at the siege potential of these compositions, Gale Force is miles ahead of Team 8. So even this little shielding should be able to net significantly more when it comes to those structures and then, you know, the experience to follow.
Tense moment for Team 8. They do not want to lose a keep here. They take down the shielding fast. So far, Gale Force seem way more concerned about these portals. As it goes down, they're going to start to move in a little bit.
Yeah, you can see them just questioning how far they can actually move up here. And a majority of the time, it's just they are comfortable just letting that go. The portal is enough to put the fear of Medivh into Gale Force Esports. I can't blame them. Honestly, it is a hard commitment. The one thing that I do find interesting, though, when it comes to Gale Force's positioning is Equinox is the only one who doesn't fear it. And it typically goes, well, if one person's not going to fear it, then you are out of position. One of the 5 are, right? It's either Equinox or the other 4 are out. So if all of them backed up, it would make sense to me. Or if all of them move in, it makes sense. But the fact that they're kind of getting this dangle and nobody on Team 8 just goes, kill the Arthas. It's catching me off guard.
Well, something to remember, too, about Gale Force Esports is not only is Equinox switching to Warrior fully, but he's also taking a step back from shot calling. So that might be where it's gone in. I even talked to him and he said it's an interesting change for him. He's been shot calling for as long as we've known him, shot calling even for Gust or Bust, and he's always played that melee assassin role that is aggressive in that way. So something maybe to just keep in mind when we see maybe some split decision making there.
Yeah, that is a really good point. You know, the communication is usually a strong indicator of when you see those kind of splits within a team, and especially the leadership of that communication shifting away from Equinox onto anyone else could really lead towards that. But for now, we found ourselves at nearly a dead even game, at least when it comes to kills and experience. Structure slightly ahead for GFE as we have yet again another Immortal phase spawning. Oh, but on bottom, Prisma, I thought he was going to get sniffed out there by Fan, but he's going to double feign the pack here. He's just constantly waiting to see if they're going to move out. He's just waiting. Smart play, actually, there, even though it looks a little silly.
He finally did back. We can be right back in the action if needed. Immortal phase about to start. Gale Force with the slight experience advantage heading into this, but so slight. These teams, it's crazy to me how neck and neck this game has been so far, but this could change everything, this Immortal.
You know, and the first thing we said when we saw these comps was Akaface is going to have so much pressure. Outside of one Burrow early game, there has not been a single time where I was like, well, this is where Akaface goes down. And part of that is Akaface playing well, but I can't help but say part of it is just the lack of pressure put onto him on the portal play from Team 8.
Yeah, it seems like Team 8 has been way more concerned just trying to take out Equinox, and sometimes they do get that, but in the process, they're going to take quite a lot of damage from Boomerang and especially from Lunara now that we're getting into the late game. So we'll see if they can focus down Equinox with all of the support and help that he has, even a Gust to reset the fight if things get especially hairy, and Void Prison. And the Void Prisons have been especially good. Maybe that's the concern. If the dive happens, Zeratul has free reign to Void Prison somebody in the back, like Lucio or even Li Ming.
Yeah,
just take her out.
The double counter momentum between the Gust and the Void. Equinox gets engaged on, no taunt gonna be dropped. But on that same note, you know, when we first saw Morales kind of rise on the international stage, it was only in situations where she was played with two failsafes.
Yeah.
And it was Tyrael and Falstad were the two conditions you needed to have to be able to make that happen before Morales could support, and it didn't matter on the map, it just was more the damage output of your opponents. And so it's a slight altered version here from Gale Force Esports, but I can't help but equally appreciate the thought process behind this composition.
It's also one of the favored battlegrounds on occasion when we did see her, because there are several chokes to protect her, and most importantly, if she stays on the correct side of the boss, there's so many stuns that can get in the way of you trying to dive on top of her.
Yeah, it is just, it's really well thought out, and now the 20 spike has been picked up here for Gale Force. It's led to them being able to kick off the halftime show on the Immortal. Only a smidge of damage has been shown on the side of Team 8 as they are desperately grasping for that 20. It'll be achieved on that top wave with Prismaticism on the Dahaka. And here it is. It's going to be locked in. The question is, can they make the play, as Gale Force already is going to be on the Immortal.
Morales level 20 is so good too. Cleanse on Fan, he blinks away. Team 8 immediately gets aggressive. They're going to have isolation on Equinox too, but he didn't even get low enough where he would have wanted to have Army of the Dead to pop. So it's a couple of heroic abilities down. Of course, Taunt will be right back, and as long as there is Sound Barrier, there is always a chance. And Leyline Seal for Team 8 too, but Gale Force only has burned so far.
That repulsion! Into that taunt. The Void is going to buy time, but I don't think Lunar's making it out.
Oh, definitely not. Grenade's only going to help as long as she can. Prismaticism with the chase. Somehow, Crowan!
And then now the Leyline Seal, but with one man down, Glorong used that to save his own life. Crowan is still just dancing, leaping all over the place. Now Fan, in a bad spot, has teleport soon, gets the drag onto him, but the beam from Akaface, Equinox need is now, so that is now a 1-for-1 trade. Buds and the rest of Team 8 here turn it around somehow, but my goodness, for such an amazing initiation of that fight, the repulsion into the taunt. I thought that was it. Gale Force somehow found that counter momentum once again.
Grenade was good once again from Akaface to help pull around a little bit, but Crowan also has Galloping Gate, so has some extra movement speed if needed. There is going to be repulsion again, though. This time, it should net a kill. Akaface.
They don't have the damage. There's no way. Not with just those three. So in a couple seconds, there is the lift off. The minions not going to be the MVPs here. And Gale Force, that was clutching it out here. And they managed to buy a lot of time. They're still going to be down a man for 15 seconds between the Medivh and into the Arthas spawning. But with such a significant health advantage onto the Immortal itself, it is really kind of null.
Yeah, because teammate will have to keep someone on the Immortal if they want to defend while simultaneously looking for the fight, and Michael Udall is even going to pull Team 8 apart further.
That was a really smart play by Udall. It was going to cost him possibly his life. He dodged the ley line seal. My goodness. And I have never seen a team so squirmy in my entire life. That is about the 5th time teammate goes, nah, I got this, and then proceeds to get somehow the great escape.
I know. I can't do it. I can't handle it. This has been insane. All right, Gale Force Esports still ahead in the Immortals. They finally have their Arthas back too.
Even if, let's say, Mike Udall did not make it out of there, at that point, it was better to take the risk and commit all into the keep. That's why you heard me just be like, commit. I was very afraid he would get that retreat. It's just beyond me how he managed to survive. And we find ourselves 25 minutes into the game. Team 8, as we see, historically been very successful here. 4-1 on Battlefield of Eternity, and a lot of the times it's been with that Medivh and with that variant combo between Justing and Glorong. The Shaman camp pressuring top, the only keep remaining for Team 8, so Dahaka is going to have to back out and get rid of that eventually, as the 4-man defense squad of Gale Force does a decent job here on bottom.
And Equinox, having that pocket healer in Akaphase, has been blocking a lot of the shots from Yoda from being able to poke. Falstad doing what he can. The Immortal of Team 8 is almost there. It's almost down, and Gale Force once again can try to siege the final remaining keep, which, by the way, has a mercenary camp on it.
Team 8 has to force this fight, and it looks like they understand that they're going to go in the portal. The taunt is there, but the Gust and the Void even kicking it right in the alley-oop here out of GFE, and they are out. Sound barrier is not enough, a smidge too late. It's going to be a short cooldown, though. Keep in mind the 20 heroic here has got
Prismat, Howling Blast, Tunneling Claws. What do they have to stop him after this? Nothing. Prismaticism gets back to the defense.
I don't think it matters. That's game. With the Immortal at that heavy, that was the only fight Team 8 could have won, because there is no way they can peel it out here. With so much pressure on the map, they have to force this second.
Leyline, that's exactly what they do. They get on top. There goes the taunt, too, trying to bring down Lieutenant Morales, and they will get him.
They end up getting it, but the shields are already removed. Mike Udall nopes right on out and sets his eyes onto the core. Gale Force is just more looking to buy time. 80 when it comes to the core HP. Immortal sitting full HP as well. That looks like it is going to be it. Game number 1 going over to Gale Force Esports over Team 8.
Such patient play from both teams on Battlefield of Eternity, but Gale Force Esports proving that their late game was just as strong as Team 8, and the Morales play was especially good.
Yeah, it was on point. And the thought process behind the composition, I think once again we get to see the beauty of Gale Force when they really apply themselves to a set. They think out their compositions very, very well. Their draft thought process is just beyond me at points, really. It just, sadly, we never saw that translate over to international play yet from this group, but even when they played against Temple Storm, how just dominant their performance was, how brilliant their drafting was. We already get to see that in Game 1 here.
Well, we are going to take a break, but when we come back, we'll see if Team 8 can tie it up. We'll see you soon.
Sulfuras Smash is Ragnaros' first heroic ability. Ragnaros throws Sulfuras into the air, and after a short time later, it slams into the ground, dealing damage to all enemies in the target area. Enemies in the center of the area suffer triple the damage and are stunned afterward. Ragnaros' second heroic ability, Lava Wave, can take a little longer to reach your enemies, but is capable of dealing incredible amounts of damage. When activated, a giant wave of lava starts at your core and travels down the entire targeted lane, instantly killing all enemy minions and heavily damaging enemy heroes. Ragnaros excels at defending forts and keeps since he can take them over with Molten Core. Use this to your advantage, stalling your opponents and buying time for your allies to regroup after a potential lost objective. While Molten Core is active, all damage that would have been dealt to a fort is instead dealt to Ragnaros. When facing an enemy Ragnaros in Molten Core, focus your attacks on him to quickly return him to normal. If Molten Core is interrupted, Ragnaros will be unable to cast it again for 10 seconds, so interrupt him if you see him start to channel it. The healing from Empower Sulfuras can keep Ragnaros in the fight for an extended period of time. It also causes his next